Number 5, cooking for one, is you are worth it. Take the time to invest, to find a few real go-to recipes and preparation hacks that'll make your daily eating better, more enjoyable, healthier. So you'll want to have some nights that it's just easy. So learn a few good hacks from some of your favorite books or online. And also think about cuisine that is already innately small. Spanish tapas, they're already the right size. And they are sweet little delights of wonderful things that you could prepare when you want that something special. A good free resource is readyandthriving.com, where there's loads of recipes that are just the right size for one or can be scaled for one. That you won't be sorry that you tried, and you'll learn some things along the way and get a nice collection of your go-to recipes. Tip number 4, right size it. Get something that's the right size for you to have a meal, and you'll be able to make it. Maybe you've heard that adage, build it and they will come. Get a few things that are the right size and you'll be able to make whatever you want, whenever you want. A couple of my favorites are these. A pie pan that is made for one. Now you can make great desserts like pie, but you can also make au gratin potatoes or pasta bake. Another big favorite are ramekins and or little Dutch ovens or little cocottes, because they are great for, you could just make eggs in a cup, for example. You put an egg, a little cheese, maybe some meat or other vegetables that you have on hand, and you have an instant lunch or breakfast. It's fantastic. You can also make dessert for one anytime you want. One of my favorite things is to make a hot crumble dessert. You just put a little bit of fruit in, a little bit of sugar, and then a little streusel topping, which, by the way, I keep in my freezer so that all I have to do is grab a handful, throw it on, and I just bake it. And in no time flat, less than 5 minutes preparation, I've got a hot, cooked crumble dessert. Delicious. Also, you can make other things like junket or custards or anything that you like, and maybe make 4 of them at a time so that you've got these in your fridge whenever you're ready. Also, if you're a bread baker or you like to make maybe cakes, get yourself some mini loaves. Why not make the whole batter and then make a few of them and put them in the freezer. Then you have cake for one anytime you want. So a small saucepan, an egg pan. And why is that important? That's because it actually cups your food with the heat a little bit better, and you'll get a more even bake. So go ahead and use those egg pans and things to saute your meat or to fry up your potatoes, all sorts of wonderful things. And then people love to make tray bakes or even to fry up some vegetables or things like this. Get a little bit smaller tray bake pan. It's not rocket science, but it makes all the difference in the world when you are able to just grab the right pan, fill it with the things that you love, throw that in the oven, cook that up, and have a wonderful meal for yourself, exactly what you want in the right size. Cooking for one, top tip number 3 is go ahead and buy big, but package it for one. So some manufacturers have been really smart. So here is fish that's already individually wrapped, so you can just grab one out. You can also find that often for chicken or even steaks. Other things that are loose like shrimp, you just buy the bag and then you can pull out whatever it is that you need. But you know what? Take that a step further. Go ahead and buy the family size of meat and then just separate it up, freeze it, and then you've got the size that you need whenever you want it. So here I've got ground meat, here I've got pork cutlets, just the right size for when I want to eat just for one. You'll need to take it out like the night before and defrost it in your refrigerator before you use it. But even things like shrimp, you can often just cook in a stir fry directly from frozen. So they're fantastic. So I love fresh bread and buy that. But for myself, I often can't eat the whole thing. So cut it and then put that piece into the freezer. And again, just like the meat, you take it out, let it defrost overnight, and then you've got the fresh bread again. Keeps well in the fridge. And you can do that with sliced bread, so just package up a few slices of bread each and then take them out as you need them. Or even you can take sliced bread in its full package, just take pieces out and toast them. And then you've got fresh and cooked bread right there whenever you need it. My favorite thing in the freezer though is vegetables. So two things. One is that you can buy the varieties that you want, and they're often frozen right at the point of harvest, so they're super fresh and you can use them for everything. So here's a nice blend that I can use for soups, for veggie bakes, for just a side dish on its own, anything that I want to stir fry. Or you can buy things like just a bag of peas and have those ready and just throw them in for a wonderful delight of freshness. These you can usually cook directly from frozen, and they're better that way. So super easy to use. Now, the second thing about vegetables in the freezer is actually my favorite, which is that go ahead and buy that fresh food or grab it from your garden. And then when you're ready to use it, like let's say an onion, go ahead and slice the whole thing. You may not be using the whole thing in your recipe, just take out what you need and save the rest. Put it into a bag, and then you've got your diced onion ready to go for anything else that you're going to make. I love that because then it's so easy to use them and you don't waste food. So you can do that sort of thing for onions, green scallions as well, so green onions, all sorts of other types of root vegetables, so carrots. Think about making carrot and celery together so you can just have that at hand and ready to throw it into things that you're making, roasts or for sauteing and adding that extra flavor. You just have it at hand. It actually makes cooking so much easier that's really not only a cooking hack for one, but I think it's a special secret for those of us who cook for one, that you can have easier cooking practices and also the freshest food all the time if you just go ahead and use it and then store it in the freezer and use it directly from the freezer. Cooking for one, top tip number 2 is use the freshness of the garden to bring you the most delicious food that replenishes itself. A great example is to have an herb garden. And you may not, when you're cooking for one, actually buy a big bunch of herbs from the grocery store because so much of it ends up going to waste. But if you're growing an herb, you just pinch off what you need and it grows back. So here's some basil, here's some thyme, and also think about that for other types of plants. A great one is scallions. So you have spring onions anytime you want, you just grow them, you cut off what you need, and then they just keep growing back. Other things that are good. So here's a little jalapeno that I'm just getting started, and jalapeno plants will have all sorts of peppers all throughout the summer. Things like this can be great. So think about different onions or garlic, and all of those are so easy to grow, and you can just take it whenever you want. It's at the peak of freshness and you don't end up wasting. Before you say, hey, I don't have a green thumb and I don't grow things well, you know what? A little kitchen herb garden, pretty easy. You just put it in your windowsill, water it every now and then, and you're golden. Putting certain plants outside, if you have the space, is also super easy. So ones that work well are things like onions, scallions, and chives, things like that, that you can just shave off and they grow so easily. One of my favorites is garlic. So you just take a clove of garlic, split it apart, poke it in the ground, and before you know it, you have a dozen garlic plants. They will all grow big cloves underneath, so you can just pull up a clove whenever you need it. And then if you want to, you can harvest a bunch and then preserve it. And before you say, okay, I'm not a jam maker, this takes almost no time. You basically put the garlic in the oil and just cook it low and slow. Just leave it alone and then put it in a jar. And then what have you got here? You have preserved garlic that you can use. It's soft, so you can just take it out anytime, spread it on bread. Instant garlic bread. Or take it out and throw it into sauces. Season your pans. Anything that you'd use garlic for, and it's ready. So it makes it even simpler. Cooking for one, top tip number 1 is the make-ahead. It makes your cooking so much easier and more delicious. What is a make-ahead? Well, I'm not a big fan of leftovers. I mean, maybe the occasional chicken enchiladas the next day is okay, or pizza the second day, okay. But making something ahead and using it purposefully in other ways is fantastic. So go ahead, roast a ham. Enjoy a nice roast ham yourself for one, but then cook up the rest of it in other ways. Slice it for nice sandwich meat, or dice it and put it into quiches. Roast a whole chicken. It's a great thing to do each week. Go ahead and enjoy that roast chicken, and then use that meat for chicken tacos. Go ahead and make that roast beef. Enjoy a roast beef yourself, but then slice it up. You've got it for meat for sandwiches, or for Yorkshire puddings, or wonderful ways to do it. Slice it up and put it on top of a nice Japanese noodle soup. So many ways to use it. The best way to do it is just go ahead and roast it up, and then when you're putting it away, cut some slices so that you can use that, and cut some dices so you can use that. So for the example for beef, you could dice it up, you can toss it in with some other seasonings, and then I've got a wonderful beef burrito. So think about, go ahead, make it big and cook it all the way through and have a wonderful, luxurious meal, but then save the rest and make it intentionally other things. So make-aheads. I've talked about meat, but make-aheads are great for potatoes. And I love to just go ahead and roast up a whole 5-pound bag of potatoes. Then they won't go bad in the cupboards, and I will have those for a variety of different things. So first of all, fresh out of the oven, I can have some roast potatoes, but then cut it up a little bit further and pan fry them. Then you've got potato hash or home fried potatoes. Go ahead and keep some back, put them in stews, put them in quiche, use them in a big breakfast burrito. Oh my gosh, there's so many ways to use it. And with a 5-pound bag, you may even have enough that you could put some in the freezer, because cooked potatoes actually last very nicely in the freezer. Rice is also another one that you can make a larger batch and then use any remaining to cook up some fried rice with perhaps some of the other make-aheads that you had. So think about that ham fried rice that came from a roast ham and some rice. All together, so delicious. So a few hacks and just a little bit of thinking about when you put things away can make all the difference for a make-ahead. So cooking hack number 5, cooking for one, is you are worth it. Take the time to find those go-to recipes and preparation hacks that'll make the difference for you every day. So invest in yourself, get a couple of things that help you to make things that are the right size for you, anytime you want, cooked in the proper way. So cooking tip number 4 is get the right size kitchen kit. Cooking for one, top tip number 3 is go ahead and buy big, but package it for one. Cooking for one, top tip number 2 is use the power of the garden to bring you fresh, replenishing food anytime you want it. Cooking for one, top tip number 1 is the make-ahead. It makes your cooking so much easier and more delicious.